Shalom, beloved family. It's your girl Sophia Spiritual Light, and we're here with a message. This is not the message I had intended on delivering today, and hopefully, I will get a chance to put that out today or tomorrow. But this is a message. It's going to be a very difficult message for me to give, to be honest, because it's like a message I've been preaching my whole life, but it's so difficult to understand because we really don't understand how powerful we are. And so we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to go into the scripture, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, but I think that this may help to explain kind of what's going on. So this is Exodus 32, and this is the golden calf. Now, there's so many ways to interpret this scripture that I am not saying that this is the only way, what I'm about to say. However, this is one of the ways that it can be interpreted. Now, for the record, I personally don't believe that the golden calf that they made was wicked. I don't believe that's the just the making of the golden calf is why they were destroyed. I don't believe that. Me personally, I believe that the golden calf is a representation of the mother, the divine feminine. And it just so happened to be that that time was not the time for the divine feminine to be in control. And they were trying to go back to that energy of the divine feminine being in control when it wasn't time for that. It was out of time. It was out of place for them to put the mother over the father. That's not what was supposed to happen at that time, and that is what caused them to get in trouble. Not the actual creation of the calf itself, but just the fact that they were not at that time supposed to be worshiping the mother for a great deal of reasons, due to a bunch of other stuff. So that's me. That's what I personally believe. That it wasn't the actual calf itself. It was the fact that it wasn't the time for that, and then it was that celebration that they did afterwards. The sacrificing to it, the worshiping it, all of that stuff. You're not supposed to do that. Again, like I always say, it's one thing to have a little statue in your house, to remind you of something. It's a totally different thing to bow down to that statue, to offer a sacrifice to that statue or the graven images, to act like that image can save you. Now, what's the difference between, I'm only explaining this because I know that it's a problem with a lot of people. What's the difference between having a graven image in your home, that you consecrate to a particular entity, and straight up worshiping it and sacrificing to it, and sort of like how they do in the Orthodox Church, where they kiss the pictures of the statues and the rings and all the stuff, right? What's the difference between all of that? In my opinion, in my observation, it's one thing to worship the statue as if the statue is the God. There's a different thing when you acknowledge the picture, and what the picture is related to. Meaning, at the Orthodox Church, right? They have the pictures of the saints. Well, if in your spirit that picture of the saint is related to the actual saint, then if Yahweh Shai was in your presence, you would have indeed, kissed his feet and stuff like that. And so that's their interpretation of it. And it's an interpretation I understand, because when you work with a pendulum, it's very similar to the same thing, because you have to greet the entity, or if you do your magic circle or whatever it is, you have to greet the entity, you talk to it very respectfully, whatever. And so in the Catholic, not the Catholic, the Orthodox Church, when they're kissing the pictures and stuff, it's out of respect and adoration for the person who is represented by the picture. It's not that they think the picture is going to save them. Okay, and so that's the difference. And there could be times when And we have records of when our people went to these particular statues, these particular places, and the entity that was pictured there showed up to them. Like with Saint Lucia, when she went to the statue of, I think it wasn't Bridget, it was somebody. She went to somebody's statue. I mean, it was Bridget. She went to this particular statue of this saint, and she asked the saint that was connected with the statue to help her, and the saint that was connected with the statue did indeed help her. And so, how else could that have happened had she not gone to the place where this statue was of this saint? And so, our people just got to think about it a little different. You don't want to be so caught up in, the way that it looks that you don't understand the process. You know what I mean? And you make an idol. And people don't even understand how idols are made. So that's why we're going to talk about this thing with the golden calf. So I'm not going to read this whole story, but I do encourage you to go, dust off your Bible and read it. So, and when the people saw Moses delayed to come down out of the mountain. Now, mind you, he was late, like what, a day or something? The people gathered themselves unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods which shall go before us. For Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your daughters, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at the hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he had made it a molten calf, and they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Let's pause. That was the problem. It wasn't that they made the calf. It was like, it wasn't the Most High that brought us out. It was this graven image that brought us out, even though they just made it. Does that even make any sense? Okay, just so this is how the heathens are, okay? And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and made peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and to drink and rose up to play. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now, therefore, let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them. And I will make of thee a great nation. And Moses besought the Lord his God, and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, For mischief did he bring them out, to slay them in the mountains and consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath and repent of this evil against thy people. That's why Moses was the man. He told the Most High, look, you need to repent for saying you want to kill these people for building an idol. You know I'm late. You know these people. Why are you doing this to them? Why would you even think, let me do this to them, when you know how your people are? So the Moses had to rebuke the Lord. Anyway, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swearest by thine own self, and said unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. And Moses returned and went down from the mount, and the 2 tables of the testimony were in his hand. The tables or tablets were written on both their sides, and on one side, on the one side and on the other side were they written. And the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven upon the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither it is the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. And it came to pass, as soon as he came nigh unto the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot. So they was having a big, loud party is what was happening. Moses was mad as a mother. That he was pissed, right? And he cast the tablets out of his hand and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they had made and burnt it in the fire and ground it to powder and strewed it upon the water and made the children of Israel drink out of it. Now, and Moses said unto Aaron, what did this people unto thee, that thou hast brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people. Listen, for that they are set on mischief. He knows that it wasn't the people that he brought. Thou knowest the people. You know the 2/3. They're set on doing the wrong thing. They can't help it. They'll stay in line for a little bit, but they have their heart set on doing some treacherous stuff. You know people who are like that, just have their heart set on doing stuff they know they're not supposed to do. For they said unto me, make us gods which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And I said unto them, whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it to me, and then I cast into the fire, and there came out this calf. So Aaron is saying that he didn't necessarily make the calf. He just threw it into the fire, and this calf walked out, which basically means they're using a fire element, and that we'll get to. Let me just stop right here for a second. What it sounds like to me is that their collective shadow for saying, we don't know what happened to Moses. We need somebody to worship. We need someone to lead us in to wherever we're going. And their shadow literally came out as this calf. Their shadow created this calf image. Right? That's their shadow created that. When they threw it in the fire, their shadow came. They threw the earrings in the fire, which were personal things. The shadow spirit demon came out, and it came out as a calf. Meaning it took on the image of the mother. You know what I mean? As they always do. All right. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side? Let him come up to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. And he said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, put every man in his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses. And there fell the people that day about 3,000 men. For Moses had said, consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, and every man upon his son and upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. So what we see here is that, of course, we know that there was a mixed multitude. Let's just start with that. There was a mixed group of people, right? And amongst these mixed group of people, there were some people who did not believe in Moses and what had happened, right? Maybe they picked up some stragglers in the desert. You really don't know, because it doesn't say that those were all the children of Israel. It just, says there was some people who did this, some people who did that. And so what you have happening is, though, that these people, their shadow was so, their shadow craved attention so much that they convinced Aaron to just do something for them. Now, if you can imagine that 9 times out of 10, you throw some gold in the fire, it's going to melt. But their shadow was so great that the gold didn't melt. It actually created an image. So you have to imagine that Aaron was probably really surprised when this image, this thing was made out of, that's not what's supposed to happen. He threw it into the fire. It should have just burnt up, and then he would have been able to tell the people, hey, the Most High didn't want this image to be made because I threw all your stuff in the fire and nothing came out. That's one reason why I've been posting the videos from the guy that I know that does the smelting and stuff, so you can see when you throw something into a fire like that that's that hot, you don't expect the image to come out of that. You can't carve an image from that. That stuff is hot. That stuff is hot. And so there's no way that you're thinking an image, a statue, much less, is going to come up out of that thing. But these people, the mixed multitude, their intentions were so wicked and they were tied so personally to those pieces that a statue came out. Now, I'm sure they're used to supernatural things happening, and you do have those sorcerers that are in the other versions of this story that you don't know what they tied to this thing. But how crazy do you think it is for you to throw some earrings into a fire and they come out as a statue? I don't think anybody ever paused to think about how insane that sounds. And so the point of this message is that that's you standing around the fire saying, the Most High is not going to come back. He's not going to help me. Let me just do what I can to take care of myself. And so you throw your energy, your gold and your silver and your dollars into the fire, and all of a sudden out comes what? Well, out comes your oppression. Out comes your oppressor. Out comes your pain. Out comes your suffering. Why? Because you didn't wait for the Most High to come in and help you. You went in and said you were going to do it yourself. And the bad part about that is a lot of us, this is the hard part to deliver. This is what we've been doing our whole lives, especially when it comes to our children. Because a lot of us we had like a lot of pain going back to when we were children. And so we said, we don't have much, but let's take our energy and let's bring a child. We need a child to love us, because the Most High, he's late showing up with his love. He hasn't really done what we wanted him to do. He's, too busy working on all this other stuff. He forgot about us. And so now we have to create our own entity to love, to show that love to. Instead of showing the love to ourselves, keeping it focused on the Most High, all of that, we turn our children into our golden calves, and we worship at the feet of our children. And the reason why this came up is because the whole situation with Tyree, T-Y-R-E, I guess is how you spell his name, Tyree, and those kids that had to be rescued off the school bus, we created that with our shadow. Our collective shadow creates these self-perpetuating pain and suffering, which is why we have to work really, really hard to deal with it. Now, we did cancel the Willie Lynch letter, which dealt with a great deal of that pain, the legal side of it, the spiritual side of it, but the physical side of it is now we have to do the physical work of dealing with the shadow that has been created. So we know that these people use fear to keep us in control. And they've always used the fear of our children to really keep us in control. And if you go back and read the Willie Lynch letter, you will hear that. They traumatized the children so that the children would keep perpetuating this fear. Meanwhile, you have in the story Moses, which is like your guardian angel, your higher self, that's up here trying to make these arrangements for you, get the laws for you, help you get all set up. And what do? You go and say, okay, well, I'm going to make my child my idol. I'm going to put my child on a pedestal and say they can do no wrong, or say all they do is wrong. They're just like this one, just like that one. So whatever the case may be, you can have a good idol or you can have a bad idol. And we collectively make our children these idols, which means that the Most High can't work with them. The Most High can't really work with us. And we don't wonder why stuff is happening. Well, you still have this big gaping piece of your shadow that you need to deal with. And, the spiritual side is hard, and we have, put a big dent in it, but now we have to move forward with doing the physical work of breaking these contracts and restoring order to this planet. Because if we now, this is not to say that you don't spend time with your child, you don't love your child, you don't this, you don't that. That's not what I mean by any of that. What I'm saying is that you have to love yourself. And that should be a statement you can make by itself, not a statement that has to be said but or and or whatever. You have to love yourself. Once you can love yourself, your children will know how to love themselves. Once you do for yourself, your children will know how to do for themselves. And if you don't take the time at this time to love yourself, your children will never have the opportunity to love themselves. And part of the issue is that we watch these videos like the one with Tyree or like the one with Trayvon or whatever the case may be, and we say, oh my gosh, what if that was my child? What if that was my son? What if that was my daughter? That happened to Sandra Bland and so forth. It's not. First of all, the Most High sent these spirits down here into our children because they had a purpose for them. They had a job for them. And if you hold them so tight that the Most High can't get in there and work with them, then you're preventing them from getting their purpose done. And so what is the point of the Most High sending entities down here if you're not going to allow him to use them the way that he needs? We are supposed to be custodians. Custodians is someone who watches out for, who makes sure they're okay, who guides them. We're supposed to be, like Big Levi always says, the Grand Jafar. You know what I mean? We're supposed to be advisors. We're supposed to lead the way. That doesn't mean that we just take over and we think that we are the creators of our children. We're not the creators. We're the vessels. We hold them, we help them, we love them, we teach them, but we didn't create them. That's a fallacy to think that we created them. We didn't create them. The Most High created them for his own purpose. He used us as the vessel because we were a willing vessel, but he did not, we did not actually create the spirit that goes into that child. We didn't create the body that goes into that child. We held the body, we birthed the body as women. We birthed the body, but we didn't make the body. We didn't make the body. We contributed to the body, with our diet and our habits and stuff. We contributed to the body with our bloodline and our spirit and all of that, but we didn't make that body. We didn't make that body. And so it is something that we as a collective have to turn our children over to the Most High. And it doesn't mean like, taking them to church and having them do all the church stuff. No. What you can do to help your children is to know what their purpose is and just redirect them into the things that they are naturally inclined to, and to not deal so harshly with them, because a lot of them, they're doing what they're supposed to do, and you don't know it because you never looked at the stars to see what their purpose was, what the Most High sent them here to do, which the story is written in the stars. It's directly there if you will look. But a lot of you all, myself included, didn't look, so you don't know what your children are here to do. And so instead of knowing what your children are here to do and encouraging them to do that, you actually do the opposite, and you torment them and torture them, and you make them your idol. You worship at their feet because you say, oh, the Most High, he didn't send me here to do anything. He only sent my kid here to do something. And so, you focus all of your energy on what the kid is here to do, and you forgot that Most High sent you here to do something too. It wasn't just to birth children. That's where mom is a title, but mom is not our only title. It is a title. Just like the angels have titles and some angels do multiple jobs, their title might be, like today is Sunday, Michael's title might be, Michael, but he's not only Michael, he's also Melchi of Melchizedek. And he is a entity that is also connected to another entity, Zedek. And they work together, and so that's how it is for us. We are part of our children. Our children are a part of us, but they're not all that we are. We're not to give up who we are as a process of raising our children. And for a long time, they told us to do this, and it's really, now there's an issue. And it seems like there's an issue because too many of us are holding on to our children so tight that the mother and the father can't work with them so that they can get their job done. You know what makes I had posted a video a while ago talking about the what are they called? The special children, the indigo children, right? And the number one thing that makes the indigo children different from other children is that their parents recognized that they were special and they gave them space to do their thing. Now, what is really so unique about that? That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to recognize that your child that you birthed from your canal is special. And that child is not to be worshipped. That child is not to be smothered and suffocated. That child is to be, you're supposed to raise them to the best of your ability, and then you let them go and make their own decisions. And if they come to you for help, that's great. And if they go out on their own and mess their life up, that's great too. All praise to the Most High. That's what the Most High brought them here to learn. You can't be smothering them so close that they can't learn the lesson that they were sent here to learn. And most of the time, they will learn the lesson. And remember, this tarot spiral, it applies to all, right? And so there are 4 stages in life. There's 4 stages in life. There's the pinnacle stage. There's the stick stage. There's the cup stage. And there is the sword stage. And the way that this plays out in our life is like this. In the pinnacle stage, that's where you're learning about money, you're gathering money, everything is related to money. Money, 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 money. And wealth accumulation, money and wealth, right? And then the next stage is sticks. And if you learn the lessons that you need to learn during the wealth accumulation phase, when you get to the sticks phase, those sticks will be used to build up who you are, as opposed to beating your hind parts. Because that's the only option. Either the sticks are going to build you up or they're going to break you down. And so as a reprise to the sticks energy, then you have the cups energy. And the cups energy is when the Holy Spirit really pours out an abundance of spiritual advancements into you. And you get the spiritual advancement part, right? Or whatever little spirit you had left of you is just emptied out onto the ground because you're wasting it, right? And then the last stage is the swords. And so if you have this spirit poured into you, then the swords will use to shape you into a beautiful mold. But if you have the spirit dumped out of you, then the swords are going to slice you back up. But it's a cycle. So it starts back over. Then you go back into building up phase where you add more physical wealth, physical abundance into yourself. And then again, you get a chance to add that to yourself so that you got the sticks energy, the cups energy, and the swords energy. So life is a cycle. And the whole thing about this, like I mentioned, this is coming out right now because we're in the sun, we're in the light, and we're in the light part of the dark to light. So now that a lot of the stuff from the dark has been brought out into the light, it's time for us to do something with it, to actually, to heal from these things now, because there's a few feelings I get from this message. If you don't deal with this part of your shadow now, meaning if you don't deal with the fact that you have turned your children into your idols and you have been worshiping at the feet of your children, and that's the reason why they can still use quote unquote children to scare us, and the reason they scare you so bad about your children, first they scare you into saying don't have children because if you have them they're so expensive. Then if you do have the children, they scare you because they say, oh, your children are going to be abused. All these bad things are going to happen to them at church. They're going to happen at school. It's going to be miserable for them. Then, in the process of that, they start to say, if there's one or two that are special, they say to them, oh, well, this one is special. This one is good at this. This one is good at that. Let's, you don't have anything going for you, but your kid, man, that kid is amazing. So let's just only work on your kid's abilities and forget about your own abilities because you're old anyway. You don't matter. But your kid is young and great. Let's just make them a star and forget about making you a star, which your dreams that the Most High sent you here to do. Forget about that. Let's just focus all your energy on your kid. And then, once they've convinced you to do that, then you're tied to your kid. If your kid makes any mistake, they do something that you don't like, that you don't approve of, they marry people that you hate, whatever the case may be, then you're always judging them. For the rest of their life, they can never stop being judged because they're being judged by this standard that you created by your idol worship. How can you ever be as good as the image that someone has made for you? How can you ever overcome that? So now you've got a lot of kids out here saddled with this, my mom is disappointed in me because I didn't do X. My mom is disappointed in me because I didn't do Y. She wanted me to be this. She wanted me to be a doctor. She wanted me to be a lawyer. And instead, I'm a mechanic. And you burden your children with this unrealistic expectation. When they were born to be a mechanic, you want them to be a doctor. And then what? Their shadow is increased. Your shadow is increased. Our collective shadow is increased because now you're like, man, I have this good kid. I'm so worried about them being murdered in the streets. And so you have this self-perpetuating shadow because guess what? Since you didn't love yourself completely, your children are not going to love themselves completely. And then when it's time for them to do something that's helpful for them, they're not going to be able to do it because you couldn't do it. If you couldn't love yourself, how can they possibly love themselves? And if you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that and your life was ruined by having a child at a young age or whatever the case may be, then their lives are going to be ruined for having a child at a young age or whatever the case may be. And it's just, it just never ends. It's a never ending cycle of pain. It's also a never ending cycle of shadow creation. And that's what the Willie Lynch letter was. It really forced you to, do this thing to your kids and your kids can never get out of it because you can never get out of it. And so the reason why this message is coming out, because we need to take the collective effort to heal our shadow, our collective shadow. We did a collective breaking of the curse, for everybody. And now we have to collectively do the hard work of healing that shadow. And so what does that look like? What does that feel like? Number one, it's getting into, like I said, I called it glamour magic. You can look up and really loving yourself, really using the enchanting tools to love yourself better. That's a huge part of it. You have to be able to look in a mirror and say you really love yourself. You're really satisfied with your life the way that it is. And to be able to say that, I did not make a mistake. My life is the way that it is, and it's not perfect, but it's mine, and I love it. You know what I mean? And not feel bad for anything that's happened in your life because you created it. You created it. Only you can heal it. And the only way you can heal it is by accepting it, by loving it to pieces. Operation Elvira is still on. Why? You got to love it, hug it, and squeeze it, and love it to pieces until that shadow is just gone. It just breaks apart. And when you need to pick up a piece of that shadow to fuss somebody out for doing something bad, you can pick up a piece of it. And you don't feel bad about it because you're like, this shadow is also my shadow. I created it. It's a part of me too. I accept that. I accept that too. You have to accept all the parts of yourself. You have to love yourself completely. And the other part of that is you have to leave space for the Most High to do his thing. So if you don't have your kid's chart, if you don't know what your kid is supposed to do, I have a link in my description. I do kids charts. This is stuff you can do yourself. You don't have to pay me to do it. I'm just offering it as a service because I know there's a lot of people who don't understand it. So, but go and pull your kids' charts. Look at what day are they born. Look at the angels that are in their celestial house. You know, you can get a really good idea of what somebody is supposed to be doing by seeing what angels are there. And then you can take that information and really use that to, encourage them to do the right thing, to do the things that they love. Like, here's a good example. My middle child, in the card system, which I talked about a long time ago, she is a queen of diamonds. And what that card means is basically she's meant to be a philanthropist. She's meant to go around giving little people money to do their thing and really investing in the arts. And when I saw that, I was like, how is a small child supposed to be a philanthropist? And I mean, what does that mean as a parent of a philanthropist? Well, what that means is I have to be making enough money to give her money so that she can just go and invest it into arts and stuff. So that doesn't take away from my purpose. That tells me that the Most High is going to give me enough money that she will be able to go out and invest in people's art and stuff like that. And so I'm not losing my purpose in there. The Most High is going to have to bless me exceedingly if he wants her to be a philanthropist. And I never forget that when I pray for my children. I'm like, you want her to be a philanthropist, you're going to have to bless me with a lot of money. And here's a funny story. She got some money for her birthday, and she went to the medieval fair, and she had extra money. So she's like, oh, my friend was crying, so I bought her an ice cream, and I spent all my money. And I was like, oh, okay. She said, yeah, she was really sad and I didn't want her to cry. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's her philanthropy coming right through. The kid was crying. She bought her an ice cream. She spent all her money. Doesn't matter. She's not worried about it. She'll get more money or whatever, I guess, in her mind. It doesn't matter. And you think I'm going to beat her over she think I beat her over the head over that? Absolutely not, because that's her purpose. I know that her purpose is to give away money. You know what I mean? So when you know that's what somebody is here, that's what their actual thing is, giving away money, then you just can automatically assume that when you put money in her hand, she's going to give it away. She's just going to pass it on to somebody. That's just what she's going to do. So what you do with a child like that is you give them a certain amount, and you tell them, look, I'm not giving you any more money after this, like y'all heard in my other video. And that's it. Once you spend the money that I gave you, you have a budget for it. You make her understand, look, you better take care of your stuff first that you want. And if you have extra, then, you can do for somebody else. But you take care of your stuff first. That's how you phrase that. And if you knew more about what your children's purposes was, it would be much easier for you to do that. But if you don't know your children's purpose, then I'm not really sure how you're supposed to feel comfortable with letting the Most High do his thing, because a lot of us think, like I said, we, with our own physical bodies, brought these spirits into these children, which we did not. We may have birthed the children, we may have, raised the children, but the children are not our children. They're the Most High. He have a purpose for them, and we have to let the Most High do his purpose. The next thing that you can do is you can allow your children to engage in their interests. Like, my oldest daughter, when she was young, 3 actually, she went to Italy with my sister. My sister was in the Navy at the time for 3 months. She was gone, and people were like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want those. I just got those. It's like, oh, you're not afraid of your daughter being overseas and it's dangerous and this and that. I said, no, she's getting a once in a lifetime opportunity to go overseas and to get all of that, travel stuff in that these little white kids get. You think I'm going to turn that down? Absolutely not. And she still thinks about it. She had a great time. You know what I mean? We have the pictures and we can show her. And she acts more like a international child. and you know, that's in her chart though, and so had I been scared when that opportunity presented itself, it would have ended up in it would have ended up that she wouldn't have had that experience. But the Most High wanted her to have that experience, and I needed a chance at that time to work on my own self, which I was able to do a lot of stuff on myself at that time while she was gone, and because I didn't have any other kids yet, so I was able to really, work on myself and get a lot of stuff done. And I needed that. I really did. And it was no issue, because she was so young. It's not like she missed us. She knew she was with her auntie and she got to go to this school and all this stuff. It wasn't a problem. So, when you have opportunities like that, you just, it's really easy for somebody to come and say, oh my gosh, you're not scared of X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, or like another thing, my oldest daughter is also half Nigerian. And so what people would always say to me is, oh, you can never let her go to Nigeria because they take kids over there and they'll never bring them back and this and that. And I heard people say that to me a lot of times, a lot. And I said, when she turns 16, she could go. Because in my mind, at 16, you're almost an adult. If she wants to go, she can go, number one. Number two, she knows how to use a phone. Number three, if the Most High, and I didn't refer to God at the time, like that, but the truth of the matter is if God wants her to go, He's going to make a way for her to go. And I know, hey, I might not be interested in going to Africa. That's not particularly my thing. But if she wants to go, more power to her. I like the Caribbean. I like the islands. That's more my thing. You know what I mean? So if I'm going on travel, I'm going somewhere in the continental United States, or I'm going to the islands because that's more in my lane. That's what I feel drawn to do. But she's an international child. She wants to go to Korea, Japan, and all these places, and I'm like, that's fine. When you turn 18, you can go. I'm not suggesting she do the whole Euro trip and backpack through wherever and all of that. I'm not suggesting that, but I had already, come to the conclusion that the Most High is going to give me enough money where I could send her and, a friend or somebody to wherever they want to go, or my sister or something. I'm just not interested in going overseas like that. I mean, I will go if I have to, but it's not really my thing. So I will send her. She can go and visit, or if she wants to do Peace Corps or whatever, they'll take her. Go ahead and do your thing, because I know that's for her. You know what I mean? And I try to encourage what she's interested in. And me, I know my thing is something different. So I don't try to make my thing her thing, and I don't try to make her, her thing my thing. I just tell her, look, this is what I'm doing. This is how I do stuff. And she's interested in some of the same stuff that I'm interested in, like writing. And I talk to her about how to be a better writer, how to, form better sentences and stuff like that. She is a really good writer, so she may be more so into that kind of stuff, which is fine. But the whole point of the matter is I always let my kids do what interested them, and so I have this story about my son. Like I say, he's 2, but he is a giant man child. And one time I went to, many times I've been to places, because in Jacksonville it's more of a mixed crowd. And when I'm around white people, they're like, holy smokes, you got a football player there on your hands. And I was like, yeah, he is kind of built for that. And they're like, yeah, he's going to make you rich. He's going to buy you a house. And I would look at them like, what? Like, you think I'm going to wait for this man to be an adult to buy a house? What kind of mess is that? He could buy me one if he wanted, but I'm going to have my own money. The Most High is going to give me my own thing. Why? Because I have my own thing that the Most High sent me here to do. And as y'all can see, I take it very seriously. Not that I don't take my kids seriously. I take them very seriously as well. But I take my stuff just as seriously as I take my kids' stuff. And so the Most High has a thing that He's going to do in me. And I'm going to have my own money, And if my son wants to play football, he can. He can do whatever he want to do. Whatever, the angels, wherever he's needed. Wherever the Most High needs him to go, that's where he's going to go. And that's not going to have nothing to do with, me having to wait for him to get his, football stuff before I can get what the Most High has promised to me. And, you know, if my shadow was weak, if I had a weak shadow, that would have fed right into my ego. And next thing you know, I'm saying, forget my other kids, let me just focus all my energy on my son. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. I wouldn't do that. I won't do that, and I know that's typically what people do. And so you may see, how you've handled certain situations that are similar to these in different ways. But the whole point of the matter is, now is the time to deal with that. However you dealt with your kids when they were younger, however you're dealing with them now, the point of the matter is your kids were here to do a job. And what you want to do is you just want to keep them on track with doing their job. And, there's no reason to, this corporal punishment, this beating your kids and stuff. I mean, I personally really don't, it doesn't work with my kids anyway, because I don't function like that, and when I have tried to do that kind of stuff, it just don't work. There's so many other ways to deal with things. Like, they have stuff that they love, like their tablets and all of that stuff. Man, let me take that stuff away. You want money? Okay, let me threaten your money. You know what I mean? Instead of, saying, oh, you did something wrong, I'm going to beat you. What that sets up in their mind is that, it's okay for the police to beat them or some other white people to abuse them because, hey, my mom did it and she said I did it because I was bad. And so you're setting up a complex in their mind that says other people are allowed to beat them because you could beat them. And even if you say, well, I'm the only one who can do this, this, and that, well, the government thinks they're our God. So they think that they have the same entitlements to your children as God has to you. And you can't tell them no different. And so if you're saying to your kids, I can beat you because I love you, you saw what Moses told the Most High, your wrath is going to be against them. You know how they are. You know your children. Why are you going to abuse them like this when you know how they are? You know how your kids are. Why are you going to beat them for who they are? That's what this whole ADHD craze and all this stuff was about. Is because instead of letting your kids be who they were, you wanted them to be quote unquote normal. And you gave them a bunch of drugs so that they would be normal. Or you knew your kid was special and yet you sent them to a public school where they would be, have that spirit beat out of them through this poor education system. Like, one of the other videos that I saw, and this is the reason why I'm talking about this, is the people were pulling their kids off the bus through the back door, through the windows and all of that. And I just thought, oh my God, how traumatized are these kids going to be? And then I said, well, why are these parents putting their kids on a school bus anyway with some random stranger? Like, just arrange to pick your kids up and drop them off from school. Like, I since my kids go to a private school and, I have, transportation, we carpool and stuff like that. I have no understanding of that whole putting my kids on a school bus. And the only time I rode a school bus, I went to public school, but the only time I rode a school bus was when my school was too far away that my mom could just drop me off. I went to far schools that were outside of the community because I went to special schools. So because I was going to a special school, I had to take a bus. It was an advanced school for an advanced program. If I was at the local school, my mom would have just dropped me off. When I was in elementary school, we never took the bus. They had a bus, but my mom was a teacher, a substitute. So she was always there with us. And then when I went to middle school, I went to a special school. So I was on the bus with my friends, but I went to a special school. And then when I went to high school, I started out taking the bus, but that quickly ended because I was in 1,001 programs. I had to be to school early every single day, and I stayed after school late every single day, like a job. I was at school for like 14 hours every single day. No, 12 hours at least every single day. And so my mom had to take me and pick me up, or I had to get a ride or whatever, because I was at school so many hours. And so I didn't understand. I can't identify with this whole putting your kids on a school bus and letting a bus take them to school, unless there's a reason. Now, I'm not saying that homeschool is the answer either, because then you miss out on the socialization. But almost everywhere in the country, you can get a scholarship to a private school. There's scholarships all over the country. They have after school programs built in, whatever the case may be. We have to start taking our children's education seriously. So the school that my kids go to, I searched. There's a lot of private schools in Jacksonville. I found a school that had a theater program and a science program. That school was, I immediately knew it was a school that I would want my kids to go to because they're interested in science stuff and they're also interested in theater stuff. And they would have the opportunity to do both. And they have had the opportunity to do science stuff, theater stuff, projects, public presentations, all that kind of stuff. That is what was important to me as a parent because I knew that's things that they would be interested in. And so I found a daycare I want to send my son to. It's like a preschool in the woods. He loves outside, gardening, plants, all that kind of stuff. That's exactly what would be the right place for him. I'm not, my kids didn't really go to preschool because they were at home, you know what I mean? But they were at home with grandma, great grandma, great uncle. I mean, it was a lot of people around, so they were able to interact with people. But in my house now, it's not that many people. So they should be around school where they can learn how to do stuff and they can really be challenged on the stuff that they like. That's a thing that the Gentiles do with their kids that we don't. We don't put enough emphasis on what our kids want to do. And then after school, there's all kinds of stuff that I want them to do. Now, the school does have a lot of that stuff built in, but like I want them to do karate. I want them to do swimming. I want them to do some other stuff. So I'm still going to have to put some extra effort and some extra energy into putting them into other programs, which is fine because I don't know how to swim. I'll do swim class with them, I don't know karate. I'll do karate with them. These are things that I can learn too. So that's something we can do together as a family. And that's the way that you want to arrange your life. It's like they have skills that they want to learn. You can learn too because that's something that you can do together. And as you have stuff that you do separate, and then you have stuff that you do together, and you focus in on what their skills are, and you encourage your skills while still building yourself, that is how you deal with the shadow, because we have to do this independently, and then we have to also do this collectively. Meaning we have to collectively say, when these things happen, they're shooting our kids down in the street, we have to collectively say, that's that child that happened to, but that's not going to happen to my child. We can't say that happened to that child and I'm afraid that's going to happen to my child. No, it's not going to happen to your child. Like I took my kids on a cruise. My daughter, the first cruise I took my middle daughter on, she was all of like 6 months. Like this was no joke. I was like, my kids are going to travel because I knew that was a big issue where I'm from. Most people inner city, they don't travel. Or if they travel, it's by bus, some little, cheap way. No, my kids, I want them to travel nice way. I want them to see that there's a way that you travel. You travel like a superstar. You don't travel like, you ain't never had nothing. And that's how we travel. We travel like a superstar. You know what I mean? Even when I don't have nothing, we still traveling like a superstar. Now, I don't have a car. I can't take them to school myself. But they get picked up for school and they get dropped off for school. So they already used to that whole, oh yeah, I get picked up. I get door-to-door service when I go to school. I don't have to take no bus or nothing like that. And I'm not saying you have to be like that, but I'm just saying that's the type of person I am. That's what's in my kids' charts, and that's how I have them to look at it. When you're home, you're in the house and you're relaxing and you do the best you can, but you don't have to be super extra, clean about every single little thing. Why? I don't want them to have a complex about that, so I don't like overkill on the cleaning. And I feel like my house is clean enough. If it's a mess, I'll tell them, okay, go and clean up. They clean up to their best of their ability. And, when I get a chance, I help them go through and pick up some more skills on how to do it better. But I don't live and die off clean. I just don't, because I don't want them to have a complex about that. Because to be honest, we're supposed to have these Gentiles and these heathens as our manservants and our maidservants. So if you have a manservant or a maidservant, how much cleaning are you supposed to do? You're supposed to just keep it organized. And then you have a cleaner come in and you clean, let them do the deep, hard cleaning. You don't have to know how to do all of that. You should be able to do it, but you don't have to be hyper focused on doing all of that. Because why? Why do you want your children to have a complex where they are OCD about cleaning, OCD about that kind of stuff? No, they just should have a healthy relationship with it. Don't be a dirty person, but you don't. Again, you're turning them into idol, where you're having them idolize cleanliness. Cleanliness is supposed to. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Yeah, it is. That's true. That's true. But cleanliness is not godliness. Listen, cleanliness is next to godliness, but cleanliness is not godliness. You cannot idolize cleanliness. You cannot idolize your children. You cannot idolize your food. You cannot idolize, anything. You don't have idols. You don't idolize them. You don't think that being clean makes you a god. That's not how that works. The only one who comes in and crowns you is the Most High. And he will do it if you give him the space to do it. He will take care of your children. Do you trust the Most High? You trust the Most High enough to let him take care of your children. Do your children have their own pendulum? I mean, you have a pendulum. You can do a self-check. Ask your guardian angel, do I need to go with them to this event? They want to do stuff. Should such and such do this? Let the Most High give you the message. Yeah. We want them to do that. No. That's the wrong direction. That's what the pendulum is for. Do your kids have a pendulum? Did you show them how to use it, where they can do a self-check with themselves? Ask themselves, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? You know what I mean? Do they know about their own chart? Do they understand what their stuff means? What they're supposed to be here to do? What they should be interested in? What they can see in their own, lives that they're interested in? How much of this stuff have you talked to your kids about? It's now about, instilling this stuff into the next generation, so that now that the curse of the Willie Lynch letter is broken, we can really move forward with what the work that has to be done. And it's not us. How can you leave pieces of our army on the field? We don't even have a full army because there's so many people out here who won't let their kids get involved in this kind of stuff. They don't, I don't want my kids to be doing that. Why not? If they're interested in it, if they keep asking you about it, you let them do what they can do, what seems reasonable for you. And that's why you have your own pendulum, and you can say, okay, my kid should do this, my kid should do that, or maybe your guardian angel say, nah, they're not ready for that. They're not quite ready for that. And you teach them about dealing with their shadow, and how to deal with their shadow, and how to accept responsibility for their actions, so that when things come up, like me, if I do something wrong, I always apologize. I say, I'm really sorry. I did not mean to do that. Or, okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't supposed to blame you. That wasn't your fault. I always do it. Why? Because I don't want them to have a complex around apologizing. I don't want them to over apologize. So when they apologize for stuff that they're not supposed to apologize for, why? Don't apologize for that. You don't have to apologize for that. That's something that you do. Don't apologize for that. I teach them both sides, and that's what we have to do. We have to, or you hear how I talk to my son? Excuse me, sir. I always talk to my kids like that, polite, so that when they deal with people, they know how to be polite. And it's not because I'm whipping them with a stick saying, you better say excuse me, you better say yes ma'am, you better say no ma'am. No, they hear me saying yes ma'am and no ma'am. That's one thing I do like about being further south. People are very polite down here. Now, they don't understand that they're polite because you never know who has a gun and will shoot you in 5 seconds, but it doesn't matter. They're just people are very polite in the South, and that's one thing. My kids are very polite. I noticed that now when I go further north. I'm like, dang. I went to McDonald's the last time I was home, and they was like, yeah. And I was like, how are you doing? He said, what do you want? I was like, oh, I'm not in the South anymore. Yeah, just give me this. Like, I had to just turn that off. Bloop. Let me turn on my dealing with these ignorant Negro voice. Man, I want this. What's this? What's that? Okay, give me this. Give me that. All right. Yeah, I had to turn that back on. You know what I mean? But that is really weird and really hard to go back and forth between that stuff. So we need to deal with our collective shadow as relates to, having these idols around, especially idolizing our kids or even our husbands, whatever. We need to rebuild a healthy relationship with ourselves. We need to love ourselves deeply. We need to give ourselves all the kindness that we can and get into our own glamour magic and, celebrating our own beauty and stuff like that. And then we need to allow our kids to, we need to turn our kids over to the Most High. We need to dedicate them to the Most High, and the mother. They have a plan for them. They sent them here for a reason. And we're getting in the way with our fear. And our fear is turning them into idols. And then our fear is taking them that's been turned into idols, and it's creating a shadow in them. So not only we have a lot of shadow. So a lot of people say that, oh, I've been dealing with my shadow. I've been dealing with my shadow. But you haven't been dealing with this part of your shadow, because we have idolized our children. We've turned them into monsters, and we have to really, and it all starts with looking yourself in the mirror first thing in the morning, crusty eyed, crusty mouth and everything, and telling ourselves we're beautiful, and telling ourselves that we love ourselves. And if we, as the collective divine feminine, are able to really look at ourselves with all of our flaws and really love ourselves deeply with all of our flaws, the planet will respond to that. And so we've seen the planet responding to all the fear of our women, because all of this snowstorm, all this crazy weather and all that, that's the earth responding to our fear. And so now that you can tie that to that, you can see the more scared we are, the more fearful we are, the more of an idol we make our children to be, because we think some police are going to come and kill them, the worse it is. And so we have to really collectively take a step back and say, I'm not going to idolize my kids. My kids are my kids, and I take care of them, and I love them very much, but I'm not going to put my kids over me. I'm going to take care of what I need to do for myself, even if it is, a few minutes of quiet time at night, even if it is, if your kids are grown, every time they turn around and ask for something, you're not going out of your way changing everything to get them what they need, that kind of stuff. Sometimes you have to tell them, look, I can't, you're going to have to give me a minute, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you deal with that, and the ones who are trying, the ones who are putting forth the effort, you do give them a little extra support because they need it, but they're putting forth their own personal effort. They're not just leaning on you for everything. They're really trying their best to get something done. And I'm only saying that because this is me. I'm trying my best to get something done. I do lean on my parents. But it's because I'm also putting forth my own effort and my own energy, and it's taking a while for it to come through. And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the safety net for our kids. When the Most High stuff is taken, just like he kept Moses a little bit too long, and those people went crazy, sometimes the Most High is caught up. And the mother, they have stuff that they're trying to work out. They haven't got to the part yet where they're ready for us. And so that's where we as parents, we come in and fill the gap and say, not like Aaron did, which is, actually Aaron did the right thing. It's just their shadow was so huge. It created this thing. But, you give them something that will keep them calm in the meantime. If it's money, you give them some money, it'll help them. If it's, they need to talk, you can help them. You'll help calm them in the meantime. But it doesn't mean that you dedicate your whole life 24/7 to what they need. You just do what you can. You know what I mean? And if we, as the collective divine feminine, the mothers of this planet, if we can come together on this and deal with this, do the work of dealing with this part of the shadow, we will see our children be able to do things that we never imagined. And the other side of that is, if we do not, as a divine feminine, come together and deal with this, the next energy that's coming in is Styx energy. And that Styx energy can be used, like I said, to build us up, or it can be used to beat us down. And if you don't want to be beat down any further by these senseless murders and the senseless stuff that's happening in the streets with these kids, you need to be able to say, that's their child. The Most High is not going to allow that to happen to my child. And if he does, that's his own business. And I will just give all praise and glory to the Most High. But the Most High is not going to give me to shame and reproach with my own children. We have to be able to say that, And maybe it's going to take them a while to come around. But if we're willing to say, look, Most High, you're going to have to figure this out. I'm just turning this over to you. Let the Most High do his thing. And if he has to take him into the gutter, so be it. Because a child has to learn the lesson. Just like we had to learn the lesson, our children have to learn the lesson. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather my children learn their lessons at 15 and 7 and 2 than at 65, 47, and 42. Okay? Take it from a person who's not into their 40s yet. Much better to let the kids learn the lesson young as opposed to learning it when they're a full-grown adult, and it's a much harder lesson to learn. Now they're pliable. They'll bounce right back. If the Most High has to take them into the gutter, let them take them into the gutter now, as opposed to when they're full-grown adults, and that gutter is going to hurt a lot more. It's going to hurt you, and it's going to hurt them a lot more. And that's an extremely difficult message to deliver, and I hope that it is received with open hearts and with the understanding that this is something I have to work on too. This is not something that's just for y'all out there. This is something that I really have to re-examine my own relationship with myself and make sure that I am actually walking the walk and talking the talk, even with my own self. And that's really hard. That's really hard. But the reward is do it now. This is a time of prosperity. We will be increased as our ability to, and a sister suggested that this may be the prerequisite for our powers being turned on, which we know our powers are going to be turned on when we go into our new year. We know that they're going to be turned on. So if you have not dealt with this part of your shadow, with this collective, this collective shadow, if you haven't dealt with this, it's going to be extremely difficult for your powers to be turned on. And you may be passed over until you are able to deal with this. And like I said, this is the easiest time to learn a lesson. The sticks is hard. We're learning it in the cups is harder. It's easy. This is the easiest time. Wand's energy is hard. Cup's energy is easy, not easier, just easy. And Sword's energy is really hard. So it's best to learn it now at this time. This is the lesson the Most High wants us to learn now. The Mother wants us to learn now. So that as we get into the Sticks energy, we won't have to learn the lesson. We'll just be able to build our houses on a firm foundation that is rooted in our abundance of financial resources. And the abundance of financial resources cannot come through until you deal with this golden calf of your child that you've been worshiping. So to the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. To my beloved viewers, you're invited to be at peace. And always remember, the Most High is your peace. Shalom.